Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter for that 29th of January. So I have a few things to say sort of up front. Do you remember, and don't worry, this is not a hit or an ask, but do you remember the CPAP machines that we sent to Bawindi Impenetrable Forest Hospital? Well, I contacted them and I said, is there anything else that you're desperate for? And they said, we need vein finders on trolleys, like portable vein finders, because I guess getting a vein, I've never had to do it, is a pretty tricky thing, particularly when you've got a little mite who's about this big. So I thought, oh dear, okay. And I didn't have the heart to come back to people and say, hey, what do you think? So I decided I was going to research it out and my business would do it. And so who did I contact? I contacted Danny Yang at Pigeon Medical, a lovely man. He's in mainland China, lovely man. And he really helped us the last time. Now, he had moved and they didn't do he had moved companies. They didn't do vein finders. So he put me on to Jason. Um, Jason was not Danny, but Danny made Jason Danny for us. And it turned out that he kind of, I guess, negotiated and it made it possible. They wanted 4 vein finders with the shipping costs and then what you have to pay at customs rather. I decided on we can do 2. They have arrived. They are on the floor. They are being used. And next week, I'll read you the lovely letter. And so we have started something that is literally changing lives. And I want you to realize that anybody who was part of that, whatever you're struggling with and you're not achieving in the way you want for yourself, that does not define you. Something that you participated in is actually right now saving lives. Okay. So I want you to have that credit and I want you to remind yourself that is also who you are. All right. Okay. So I thought and puzzled about, okay, clutter buddying and that clutter buddy system series that we've just finished. And hats off to the 2 groups that have formed. Okay, wonderful. I hope everybody gets what they need from it. I thought, okay, what is the next step? And I thought, well, maybe a little guidance for those people who are struggling on their own or working on their own, and even those people who are going to be working as a group. All right. So I decided that this week, and I'm hoping I can restrict it to a few sessions, 2 or 3 sessions, we would work on creating the plan that works for you because you are the architect. All right. And no one knows you better than you. So, building on that, I thought we'd start with the very first thing that you want to do, obviously, when you're trying to move forward is set a goal, right? And when you set the goal, the point is it's almost like a target for you. You can't hit the mark if you don't have a target. All right. So to break that and chunk that down, I decided to talk to you about the best way to set short-term goals and long-term goals and to catch yourself sooner when you overwhelm yourself with how much has to be done. All right. So if you don't have a target, which is when we are deciding to move forward, we're actually deciding what we're going to define as the first short-term goal. All right. And following that, that leads to being able to much clearer decide what is the next for long-term goals, but focus on one at a time, all right? So short-term and long-term goals get accomplished by setting priorities, all right? Remember that. A short-term goal and the plan that follows it is based entirely on setting priorities. And there will always be competing priorities. So I want you to put on not your wide angle lens view, but your narrow view. So right now, I'm going to ask you, what would be enough? Now, this is not a question you sit and think about. Get out those pens and paper, okay? What would be enough for you to consider something that's been around for a while, because it has to kind of bug you to be a short-term goal, to suddenly make that thing a priority to focus on? What would it take for you? What would be the component parts? What would be the elements? What would it look like, feel like, whatever, okay? So right now, I want you to take out your pens and paper, and which of course you keep on hand because you know this is not just a talk broadcast. We're not having a chat, we're making a plan that works. And write down what top 3 reasons that may be unique to you, right, would be enough to make something a priority for a chunked down short-term goal. What would be 3 reasons? Because it has to come from what is your common sense, your preference for your own unique vulnerabilities. What bugs you the most? What upsets you the most? All right. And then it has to be doable. So, what would 3 reasons be that would make you decide that something is a priority to be a short-term goal? There are no rules. For short-term goals, however, it is good to identify if you're having trouble coming up with those reasons. It's a good thing to identify for yourself what specific situations usually are composed of your thoughts. What are you saying to yourself? Your concerns, what is upsetting you and bugging you? Your fears, what is causing you to stop and be afraid of, and whatever the fear is, what are they that trigger you? Because it's thoughts, concerns, and fears, all right, that trigger you. And how do you know when those thoughts, concerns, fears are triggering you? How do you know that? Here's a hint. It's not the answer because you have your own answers, but start looking at things like you either become distracted, and that is easy if you're living with one of the distractibility comorbidities, right? ADHD, depression, anxiety. All right. You either become distracted or you become stuck and overwhelmed. And then maybe you do something like, yeah, I'll come back to that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll come back to that. And you move on to something else. The number of times you do that should indicate to you whether that's a trigger. You've been triggered, and actually, that's not your best idea. That's a diversionary tactic that you use in order to avoid whatever the sensory input is that is really uncomfortable. When you're not able to decide a specific task that you yourself personally, for your own reasons, consider actually needs to be done. So it's a biggie. It's a thing usually that keeps popping up, all right? And it needs to be done before some other task that's part of the big picture of what the problem is. Because it's those tasks, the ones that have to be done first, all right, in order for your plan to work. Those are the ones that work best with setting short-term goals. So sometimes you'd like to accomplish one thing, but in order to accomplish or make a dent in one thing, you need to do something first. One of those things might be something like getting the resources you need or enough of them in order to make a dent, action that first thing you're going to start with. Okay. So, whatever the thing you set your mind to, we're going to start here. Those tasks can also allow their own version of thoughts, fears, and concerns, all right, to become frequent. Means you get triggered more on those things. What are those things? Right now, let's take a minute, write down what have been the most frequent stumbling blocks to being able to decide, even though I've got all this to do, this is where I need to start, or this is where I feel most capable of starting. Those thoughts, fears, and concerns can become the first place you go to that interrupts you in moving forward. And when they keep becoming an interrupter, remember we talked about how the brain works. Your brain goes in search not of the right answer, but the most frequent answer, and you habituate those thoughts, fears, and concerns. Right now, if you will, please write down what would be a thought, a frequent thought that comes to mind, so that you can see it coming the next time. What do you say to yourself? Say to yourself is the verbal basis for the thought you have. And once you've had that thought, you generally have a feeling about it. That's part of the stalling out process, right? If you've identified the thought or thoughts that frequently come to mind when you go to take on something new, something that's important, what would you say, if there is one, would be the fear that puts you on pause and stops you from moving forward? What's the fear? Most common fear. And if you don't have a fear, you can't identify a fear, maybe let's just look at what's your concern. Like, what could get in the way? How could this get derailed? How could this not work? What are you saying to yourself about that? Because these are the ways you get interrupted with the plan that you really want. All right. And the more you let those things rule the roost, the bigger they will get, the more powerful they will get, for one reason only. They are not necessarily bigger than you are. The reason that they start to stop you more easily, more effectively, is because you habituate them. You make them stronger by allowing them to stand and giving in to them. And when you do that often enough, it can become, and often does become, a self-sabotaging stumbling block. How many people here, hands up, feel that when you go to approach a task to declutter or resolve, not just declutter, but actually move it on to resolve, that you actually do feel like you're stumbling? You said it? Yeah, everybody's got their hand up. Everybody's got their hand up. All right. Those go back to thoughts, fears, and concerns. Now the next question I want to ask you is, how powerful have you made those thoughts, fears, and concerns? And I want to give you a bit of an analogy here. If you had, I don't know, God forbid, pneumonia, all right? Say you had pneumonia and you know you really are uncomfortable. There's an analogy here with clutter, all right, and hoarding. And you just feel like you're losing ground or you're not gaining ground. And that's really frustrating and upsetting. And maybe you're getting flack from somebody or something. Maybe you're afraid your landlord's going to have to come in and do a repair, and that would be life-changing. Okay. Which of these two options would work better to solve the problem? Don't go to the doctor. And even if you do go to the doctor, in this case, I'll be the doctor, okay? A source of support and advice. And don't take the medication. Okay, even in small doses, don't take the medication. Or go to the doctor and try the medication, even though there might be side effects. Which of those do you think is going to get you out of the pneumonia? Because clutter is the same thing. Now, the benefit of clutter over pneumonia, if there is one, is that, and there is that you can take the medication in small, doable doses. There is no one size fits all. It's too much for today, then you chunk it down, you don't give up. It's really important not to give up. Chunk it down till you can carry it. Small steps at a time if necessary. Why? Because you do not want your brain habituating when you're in a pinch, always giving you the same fears, thoughts, and concerns. This is within your power to do. You just need to tell yourself the truth about what those fears, thoughts, and concerns are. Those are the enemy. And no matter what the fears, thoughts, and concerns are, they are never 100%. Deal with them 10% at a time. Don't let yourself get stuck on, I can't. Don't let that happen to you. When that thought comes to your mind, this is bigger than whatever you're saying to yourself that you're ending up with, I can't. Stop and ask yourself, okay, what is the one thing I can do? What is the one thing I can do? No matter how big or how small, and do that. Does it solve the problem? Maybe not. But I'll tell you one thing it does, is it breaks that pattern of habituating thoughts, fears, and concerns that then overwhelm you. Can you see it? How many people here understand the importance of that? Chunk it down till it's so small you can lift one bit of it and keep doing that. It'll take you longer, but you'll get there with the right plan. Okay. So, how do we go about setting those short term goals? The first thing you do is identify the enemy. All right. The enemy is the fears, thoughts, and concerns. And because those fears, thoughts, and concerns for you are trigger points. Okay. And they trigger you. And the more you can identify those and feel them coming when they pop up early, don't let them get a hold on you. First time you feel a thought, a fear, a concern, all right, stop. Because you can predict from previous experiences what they're likely to do and create, which is to distract and derail you. You don't have to change yourself entirely. One situation at a time. Stop, put yourself on pause, and reflect. All right? Reflect on, what am I feeling right now? This does not feel good, or this feels so like, oh, wait a minute. This didn't lead me any place I wanted to go the last time. What do I need? Where is it? And how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference? For me, today, right now, in this one instance where I'm stalling out. Okay? And decide, please, right now, if you can't do anything else, decide right now that if any of those thoughts, fears, or concerns pop up, present themselves, and if your house isn't on fire, you aren't projectile vomiting, you don't have a femoral bleed, all right, stop and say, you're not going to let them stop you. They may slow you down. You may need to think, sort of stop what you're doing, all right, and think this through, and then do one small thing. You're not going to let them stop you this time. They're not going to be the secret thing that undoes you. The backstory. The next thing we need to do is to be present mindfully, to stay conscious every day as much as we can, especially about what is a priority for that day. Stay conscious. One of the best things to do, I think, is to externalize it, and that is write it down the night before. You decide what your day is going to be, largely. You decide what one thing you're going to attack or address. And you do as much in 15-minute chunks as you can if you're just getting started. Do not do a marathon. You won't go back to it. Break it up in 15-minute chunks with joy, fun, and play, learning, growing, developing human being, and then back to the work for another 15 minutes only. All right. And the number of those that you do regularly is going to make a huge difference. Day to day, it won't look like you turn very much over. All right. But if you go back to it day after day, okay. So, plain and simply, we all, you, me, everybody else, we need to commit to just staying on task and remaining focused. Okay. And when we lose our focus, coming back and refocus. We all lose focus. It's not just you, it isn't just ADHD. Life can do that to us. That's a normal thing. It's not something to judge, but it's something to catch. Okay. Some days it will be bringing ourselves back on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis, depending on what the other stressors or struggles are in your life, distractions. Okay. Now, depending on what challenges you, and hopefully you've written down one fear, one thought, one concern, depending on what challenges you, that's the cause of you being distracted or feeling defeated in the end. It's that. It isn't anything that's wrong with you. All right, because everybody here, myself included, has things wrong with them. Nobody gets into this world perfect and nobody leaves it perfect. So, whatever challenges you, thoughts, fears, and concerns, habits, when we repeat the thoughts, fears, and concerns, and we let them rule the roost, that leads to the need to be distracted. Why? Because when we give in to that, we feel defeated. Who is going to sign me up for more defeat? Wouldn't it be a sensible thing to get distracted and to end up doing something else entirely? Of course it would. That's good mental health. All right. Not a good plan, but it's good mental health. Don't stay with what's beating you up. Chunk it down. Maybe you've got a pile of clothing. Maybe you've got a pile of paper. Maybe you've got a pile of book. Who knows what it is? All right. Who knows what it is? It's something. If you really are struggling, like really struggling, do one. Take a deep breath. Do one more. Take a deep breath. Do one more. Every day won't feel like that. I happen to believe, rightly or wrongly, there is no scientific proof of this, but 23 years of experience has taught me to advise you that if you're going to do something, hopefully you've chosen something that is a priority, okay? It really is. It's bugging you, or it needs to bug you because it's an official thing that has to happen. Okay. Stay with that until it's finished. Now, it may not be in one day, because what you need for the effort you have to make, especially when you're getting started, right? And you're trying to keep going, the thing you desperately need, I desperately need, not about clutter, but about lots of other things, is when I look at what I've done, it gives me meaning. It validates that I didn't accomplish nothing. There's the evidence of it, and we need that. So when you start on a project, finish the project. Okay? Unless the house is on fire, there's projectile vomiting or a femoral bleed. Those things preempt. All right. I'm joking about that. All right. Probably not a joke, but yes, something that really, truly, 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 truly gets in the way. All right. So when we fight those thoughts, fears, and concerns, we bring ourselves back and we reduce the period of distraction. We reduce the number of times we feel defeated, discouraged, and derailed. No. What do I do? No. What do I need to do? One more thing. Okay. And you know already that that's true because you have experience with some of these things. You know what I'm saying is true. And they have happened in the past, often without notice. That's why I'm saying remain present of how you're feeling. When you don't feel good all of a sudden, ask yourself, what is happening right now? What are my thoughts, my fears, and my concerns? What are my thoughts, my fears, and concerns? A little trick I have now, I may be an auditory, my representational system of the world may be auditory. Yours might be visual. So maybe you want to write it down. All right. What I do, because I find that when I do this and I'm trying to get myself over a hurdle, I talk out loud to myself because then all of my senses are picking up the message. And then I've got all of my senses that are bringing in data to help me figure out what has gotten a hold on me here. What is it? And you can tell it, the truth lands in a place inside you that is unique to you. Sometimes it's in your head, sometimes it's in your throat, sometimes it's in your chest, sometimes it's in your stomach. You know where truth hits you. Okay, that's what you're looking for. Now, when things have happened in the past and you haven't noticed them, know this: our past was then, it's history. It is not necessarily the same path to the future we want. Because if we repeat the same, we get the same when it's not on target. Change is just that. It's the willingness to be brave enough to try things differently and risk feeling uncomfortable because they are not habituated. These are new choices you're trying. And they can also feel a little bit disoriented and a little bit frustrating. They can, because they're new. All right. Whatever your consequence is right now, take out your pens and paper and please write down the top 3 thoughts, feelings, fears, and rationalizations that have popped up in the past. So that's feelings. How do you feel? What are the feelings that come forward first? What are the fears? A lot of what we cause that we don't want is based on fear. All right. And then if we repeat it often enough to have piles, it's because we rationalize it. But if the solution doesn't solve it, it actually creates another problem. Whatever you're saying to yourself clearly is not what's needed here. And you're not telling yourself the truth because all parts of ourself are trying to heal. That's a primary thing and survive. So what are the feelings, fears, and rationalizations that have popped up in the past? Just even 3 of them. Write down 3. So you've got 3 you're on guard for. You can spot them the next time they pop up and try to derail you. All right? Because if we don't do anything differently, all we're giving ourselves is a repeat of the past. And we know what that means. That's all we've got to work from then. If we repeat what didn't work because it has become a habit and it didn't work then, why would you think it's going to work any differently the next time on the same problem? We only get one life. Let's not spend it that way. Better to stop and put yourself on pause and ask yourself the right questions and take one step, even if you need to make 1,000 steps to get out of whatever it is that you're in a jam with. Moving forward one step, you're on a path to success. And the more you habituate that one step, the more success you'll have. And then that will feel normal. So next, I want you to go back, all right, everybody, and watch the video in the webcast recording library on limiting beliefs. All right, limiting beliefs. And that's on hoarding.ca. You know that, www.hoarding.ca. And when you're watching it, I want you to write down the limiting beliefs. There are 11 of them. And then I want you to circle the limiting beliefs that you, as an individual, knowing yourself as you do, know that you're susceptible to. We don't need to repeat a podcast on limiting beliefs. We've got a great one in the library. Okay. And with that paper and pen you have, did you keep your handy little sidekick, pencil and paper? Write down the challenging beliefs and in a line, and then under it or beside it, write down an alternative response that is all you are capable of, that is also you. Even if you opt for the limiting belief more times than not, that might not be that you're committed to that. That might be that you've habituated it. We all have good habits and not so great habits. Write down an alternative belief that you also know is true and believe in. Why do we do that? We do that because from our inside that knows us best, we will learn to challenge the validity of those very comfortable, natural, normal to us limiting beliefs. We will challenge the validity of them, and we will do it in language that really resonates with us. It's our truth. All right. And there's always more than one truth. And keep that list for the next 2 weeks. All right. Right at hand. When the limiting beliefs you're susceptible to pop up unwanted, all right, because they can learn how to pop up when you don't want them, and they are no more true than if you had to go in search of them. If they don't work and they haven't led to enough success in your life, identify that. So when they pop up unsolicited and unnecessary, and it's not easy, know that as you start this. In the beginning, it's not easy to stop and challenge yourself. It is far easier to go to the place you've been before. But ask yourself, how much time, how much energy do you want to spend there? Don't you come here every week because you want the space you know is better for you? So, what's the answer when things get scary or they get frustrating and you're working at making those changes? Okay, the absolute first answer to that is play. Yeah, you heard me. Play. Do one thing, just one thing using the new belief, the new plan, the new strategy. Do one thing and then play in a way that is meaningful for you. Celebrate. Give yourself the serotonin, the endorphins, the dopamine, all right, that you need, so long as it isn't more acquiring. Plain and simply, good self-care. Good self-care. You are running a marathon. To break habits that have gotten you into a fix, you are running a marathon. Do you notice that the marathon runners, I am completely agog at marathon running. However, do you notice that there's always helpers along the way and they always stop for water? They stop for what they need most because they're sweating the water, right? You're doing the same thing when you fight a pile. You're doing exactly the same thing. So why wouldn't you use the recipe that works? Run a mile, not literally, run a mile and stop for what you need. And I suggest good self-care. so long as it is not adding to the problem. All right. And play, joy, fun, and play. It's there. Then add a dollop of self compassion. No, you're not a failure. No, you're not. Now, right now, take out the pens and paper, and I want you to write the word you use when you don't succeed. What is the word? Generally, it's a self recrimination. What is that word? Let me tell you something. That word cannot be as true as you feel it at that moment. And how do I know that? Because you reached out for the help you know you need. And that makes that word a lie. All right. It's not even partially true. You don't need to be anything or anyone different from who you are right now. If you can want it, whatever it is, success, progress, you can do it. Here's the thing though, you need to have the right tools and the right plan. Don't criticize the person, criticize the plan. There's a fault in the plan. You also need the right support because the right support makes all the difference. Okay. That water that those marathoners drink so they can finish the race, right? Because that's what you're in. That water, it didn't show up on its own. All right. Somebody brought what they need to them, and they were smart enough to stop frequently enough and use it to keep going. Now, spoiler alert. Okay, spoiler alert, people. Watch out for your self talk. When things don't go well, what do you say to yourself? What do you say to yourself? Write it down. Let's do a little exercise. Right now, imagine that you are a little person. Okay. And someone is saying that message that you just wrote down to you as a little person. You're saying that to a little person. All right. Because when we feel overwhelmed, defeated, and discouraged, that's exactly who we are. We are our little self. What would you say to somebody who said those things to the same little person that you say to yourself in judgment? If somebody else was saying that to a little person, what would you say or think? How many people here believe that that would help the person change and improve and make progress and feel good about themselves? And wouldn't you want to stop that person from doing that with that little person? So stop it because you're doing it to yourself. You have the power to stop it. That just sucks energy out of us. You don't need to be one bit different than you are right now. You need a different plan. And you need a pace that you can work that plan. Okay? When things don't go well, don't turn on yourself. The problem is when we say those things to ourselves as adults, we actually believe them. It wasn't true then, and it isn't true now. Don't criticize yourself. It doesn't mean you're right, but you can be 100% dead wrong. All right. And so long as you aren't deliberately hurting yourself or deliberately hurting somebody else, you're not the problem. The plan is the problem. Don't criticize the person, criticize the plan. Critique the plan or the tools and resources that you're trying to use. Are they the right ones to get you where you want to be? A plan, tools, and resources are easily changeable. And chances are, highest probability, they're a big part of the reason why you're discouraged, disappointed, and derailed. You're not using the right plan or the right strategies. Now, at the same time, it's not all kumbaya and warm fuzzy, all right? At the same time, accountability is really important. But you don't have to be accountable to anybody else, right? It's really important to success. Accountability, and this is important for your clutter buddying, all right, and yourself alone. Accountability is not about blaming yourself. We're accountable to ourselves, no one else. So if you're a journaler, you can do it in handwriting, or you can do it in voice. And consider keeping it short and to the point, all right, when you're logging. And you're logging the actions you took, the decisions you made, and the feelings you felt. And then take a moment, a few moments actually, and reflect on what you would do the same or differently the next time. That's the benefit of journaling. You externalize it so you don't carry it around fully. And now it's observable. And depending on whether your representational system of the world is visible, all right, you'd write. If your representational system of the world is auditory, you learn best by listening, record it and play it back. It will have a special truth for you. It will get to a place that no other method would get to. Once we've decided on our short-term goals, those things that we decided about become our highest priority to start with and stay with until they're finished. All right. The next thing that we're going to talk about next week will be setting longer term goals. All right. Because longer term goals require behavioral change, not just attitudinal change, but behavioral change. And I want you to have the complete package. We've done an intensive on short-term goals and how we derail ourselves and what we need to do in order to fill the void we create by doing that to ourselves. It is not shopping. It is not buying. It is not creating. It is not keeping recycling. It is not any of those things. What we need is within us. There is nothing outside of ourselves that will do the same for us. We were born perfect and we got banged up along the way. Okay? So accept yourself as you are. Good self-care, self-compassion, and accountability to yourself for what you know is true for you. And if it isn't working, try something new. Try something different.